It seems that in every culture and human society, people are usually engulfed by the fear of death, a pandemic caused by ignorance. But why would people fear death if they had knowledge of themselves, as well as love, and understood the other to be the extension of their personalities or themselves? So it seems that life is the only thing we know, or existence. But within this life, there are supposed to be changes, because if life was to be on one single state without any changes, it would thus seem to be the exact opposite of what it is. In other words, it would appear to be the exact thing that we know of as death. So in order for life to be interesting, there must be new scenarios and experiences. And for this to happen, consciousness has created the means for it to be able to incarnate, ascend, as well as reincarnate. But this reincarnation is determined by something called karma, the laws of cause and effect, which determine that everyone lives for the other, because all of us are the single organism or make up the same system, which we all know as life or the universe. And so with this knowledge, there's a requirement that we know ourselves, we know the other, and we love and accept as well as provide for the other in the same manner that we provide for ourselves. And in so doing, we learn that the other person is an extension of ourselves, and that their abilities and talents can be utilized by us to benefit our own lives. And so in such a scenario, fears do not exist. But given that we are ignorant of ourselves, because we all know that everything that you know is due to you us having a passion of. In other words, we usually know much about what we love, and we know so little about what and usually fear what we do not understand. And so with this being said, it becomes obvious that many of our fears are due to us being ignorant of life itself as well as ourselves. So we're saying that we're practicing a spiritual system of self-mastery. We thus know much about ourselves and have the ability or the responsibility to ourselves as well as the next person. Because in order to master yourself, you have to be living in an environment that is conducive for you to grow spiritually. And within a capitalist system which creates uncertainties, fears, as well as poverty, people tend to compete with each other and thus see the next person as a threat. And this has created fears in a world of abundance, because the general person is naturally supposed to have access to everything that could ever need within a particular lifespan or a lifetime or incarnation. And this is supposed to help them achieve exactly what they were born to achieve. Given that they were to deviate from their birth intentions or what they were born to achieve, this would this would automatically create fears. And these fears would be justified by us fearing death. And so the reason why we fear death is because we fear confronting ourselves as the source, because all of us are the manifestations of God who has come to this world in order to interfere with his own affairs and change the human projection or trajectory. Given that we are failing to achieve this, the ideas of ego would thus develop, because we start to associate ourselves with our little achievements in the sense of houses, cars, materialistic successes, titles, nationalities, etc. But none of these are eternal, due to the fact that about 6,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago, none of these existed. Your car didn't exist, your house, or any of the things that you pride yourself of. Meaning that 2,000 years from now, none of them will exist. And so much that you won't even be here for 2,000 years. You will leave this world and be confronted with the knowledge that you are source. In other words, you were God all along while you were on this earth. But instead of doing what you were born to achieve, you were distracted, and you made the distraction the primary cause of your existence or life. And so within life, there are different races, and we all know that if I was to be accused, for instance, of impregnating someone or having a son or child, which I would like to deny, if that child had all my features, from physical as well as spiritual, or let me just say the spiritual features, it would be almost impossible for me to deny being a father, because we all know that identity is associated with identification. And so we see, when you see the next person, the same two nostrils, same two lips, eyes, etc., and they are built in the same manner as yourself, why do we then see a difference rather than seeing an extension of yourself, or that person had the ability to give birth to yourself in the same manner that you had the ability to give birth to them, and that the two of you are not just the same species but are the same being, due to you having the same attributes and living on the same planet at the same time. Some of that science tells us that there's only 6% difference in human beings or in races. And the manner in which our organs operate is the same, regardless of race, gender, age, etc. Meaning that we are essentially the same organism, or as well as being. So where does our fears of death come from? Because we were saying that the only thing that we have is life or existence, and this existence is consciousness, and that life is managed primarily through love, and that fear comes from ignorance. And this love which governs life is usually derived from self, because in order to love anything else, you have to first accept who you are, and as well as your abilities to make ends meet within your capabilities. And so these fears will usually come from us either being ignorant of who we are, or being unable to love ourselves, and thus failing to love or to see the next person as an extension of self. And so also understandably is the fact that the so-called death is a part of life. So that we cannot say that the dead person is aware of their own death. It's usually the ones who are left behind burying them who will be talking about death, scared of death, joining funeral parlors, etc. Meaning that the only thing that gives us the illusion of death is this life itself. And if this life also was in a form of a virtual reality, in other words, an illusion, how then can death be real? Furthermore, within a lifetime, we are required to go to sleep every 24 hours. And whenever we do so, we find ourselves in these various other dimensions, or we can say that the 4D world of our dreams. And so in this world, things usually happen faster than within this life. And so if it was not necessary for us to dream and experience the duality of this existence, which comes in the form of a three-dimensional single reality in which we live in whenever we're so-called awakened, and the four-dimensional world of our dreams, why is it then that we are programmed to go to sleep every now and then, that we cannot go through a month or a year without sleeping, if sleeping was not important? And one also important aspect is that whenever we go to dreams, we visit our various other personalities within the universe who are of the same age length as well as ourselves within this world or earth. But the only difference is that we are allowed to take front access to those worlds whenever the situations are similar to what we're familiar with. But whenever we realize that we might be dreaming, or the conditions appear to be completely strange, our twin souls which belong to those worlds will usually take the center stage, and leaving us to gravitate towards the next personality where the conditions might be similar to our world. It's more like tuning into a different frequency which is similar to what you are familiar with. And so with this being said, that we go to as many different personalities of ourselves throughout the universe, which are 1 billion 8 million, and also have the same number of incarnations per single universe. The idea of life tells us that we're infinite beings, and these infinite beings are the Most High God. And so where does this fear of death come from? If not from the ignorance of self, as well as accumulated egos which we associate ourselves with due to our materialistic obsession or possessions. So with this being said, I would like to challenge religions, theologies, as well as science, and as well as politics, because many of us find ourselves in these predicaments where we continue in poverty as well as with this fear of death due to us being misled by politicians who believe that we can free ourselves within the political system. Yet the truth of the matter is that the political system that we subscribe to today, the capitalist system, was created using Africa as a sacrifice for the whole world, while benefiting Asians as well as other races. Such a manner that pyramid scheme was created with whites on top and blacks at the bottom, and other races put in the middle in order to make them support the system, and by seeing it as not necessarily against them. And so for Africans to accept such a system without having a potential victim is a fair form of selling out, because all of our leaders are beneficiaries due to the fact that they are the agents of the Western imperialistic system, whereas our people are suffering and are in dire need of a different social system rather than the usual political as well as religious systems which have failed us and have continued to perpetuate the fears of death. And, and with these fears of death, we have created the illusion of separation, which thus makes our conditions far more worse, because if we're living in a world where we understood the other to be an extension of self and we're loving, caring, kind, as well as well informed, we thus then understand that life as we know it is an illusion, and this illusion is ended whenever we collect our minds together to create that which conceived us into this reality. And when we do so, when we combine all our minds together and see beyond the matrix or the illusion, we thus escape it. But in order for us to escape it, we first have to be aware of it. And so all of these fears which we have are due to ignorance. Like I said time and time again, and this ignorance is due to ignorance of self. And so without fully understanding what we are, the divine aspect of our existence, we'll never be able to come across, to overcome these fears. Because the only opposite of fear is love, and love is what sustains life as well as nourishes it. And so death is an illusion, but love is a reality of our existence.